We'll do it live. Forget it. We'll do it live.
Wow.
Oh, man. We are early. But, keep them guessing. That's what I do. Guys, welcome. Season 3, episode 8. It's our live show for the season. I made Casey do this because he's the one that makes me do live shows. So he has no choice but to be the live show guest.
This is true.
And I said, Casey, listen, live show. I want to make it a really good movie. I want something that's going to captivate as many audiences as possible.
You did not.
And Casey said, you know what we should do? We should do a long foreign film that is complete subtitles. Genius idea. So you picked 1954's epic samurai drama, The Seven Samurai, starring Toshiro Mifune, Takashi Shimura, and Isao Kimura. Who I'm guessing I pronounced all of those incorrectly. So henceforth will be known by their initials. So
gosh.
So before we get into it, I do live show. I'm super excited. I got the comments up, although if you've watched past live shows, you know I'm horrible at that. So I'll do everything.
Guess what? I can control them too, though, because
this
can do that.
Genius. So Casey's on comments duty. I'll be controlling the banner in the lower part of your screen. So stay tuned for the big news. We'll do that around halftime. But I do want to start off the live show with a giveaway. Here's the thing. I have these boxes full of junk that I want gone out of my office.
Junk? These are gold.
This is all random stuff that I've accumulated over the years. And I'm willing to send it to all you viewers and listeners and watchers. With the caveat that if you live halfway across the world, you will need to pay for shipping or tell me somebody local that I can hand it off to. So let's get right into it. I want to start with what I think is a pretty cool find. This is 16 candles.
Hey, Sean.
16 candles, shot glass. If you're a fan of drinking and you're a fan of 80s movies, I mean, then this is your go-to.
Actually, can
see,
I just have
it's got what's her face, and it's
Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, what's her face.
This is one of my favorite movies ever.
This is the single worst day of my entire life, is what it says on the shot glass. So let's start with who would like it. Go ahead and put a comment down. And here's what I'll say. Casey's one of the entries. Here's what I say. If you want to share this video right now, share the live on either Facebook, throw a comment and tag us on Twitter or Instagram.
YouTube.
And,
it's on YouTube too.
It's on YouTube as well, YouTube Live. If you want to do that, then I will give you an extra entry. Walk, you got entry there. I see it. Sean, I don't know if you want it. If you want it, shoot a comment saying that you want it.
We'll wait.
And we'll wait. No, I will. I'll see who's done what in the next couple of minutes, and then we'll give it away in a couple of minutes. So let's start with the first question. Every show, Casey, you're no stranger to the show. So Seven Samurai. Why did you pick it?
You know why? Is because there's a subset of films that I feel like someone like myself, like you, a lot of the people who watch or listen to your show should watch. You know what I mean? It's like that list of like AFI's top movies of all time, like obviously Citizen Kane being like number one. There's a bunch of them, and this is always one of them. And I haven't seen it. And not only that, it is a huge inspiration for so many other movies. And one of them being Star Wars, which obviously is one of my favorite movies of all time, or just sagas of all time. So that was the reason behind it. It was like, I've been wanting to watch it for a really long time. And I know that it inspired so many movies like The Magnificent Seven and animes and The Mandalorian, all this other stuff. So had to watch it. Sean says he doesn't drink.
All right. Next, we got lots of non-drinking.
Walk says it's on my list, but I've never seen it either.
Walk says he does drink.
You don't violently.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. It does show up on a lot of lists. I mean, I got quite a few books that are about, top 10, top 100, top 1000 of the decade, of the century, whatever, and it shows up on a lot of them. I was actually surprised because I thought for sure this was going to play something into your background on with film, and maybe this being part of a class or one of your college studies. So, but yeah, I mean, the inspiration for this, which I'm sure is going to be a running thing throughout the show, is how this movie has inspired so many other things. I mean, like we said, it came out it says 1954. However, the release in the US wasn't until November 19th, 1956. But regardless, I mean, for a foreign film to be so abundant on these lists, you don't see that very often. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, definitely not a movie I'd seen before. I am a huge fan of old films too, like Citizen Kane and Maltese Falcon and stuff like that, but I had not seen this one before. And I'm not gonna lie, sitting down to watch it and realizing, oh, it's 3.5 hours, and then hitting play and realizing, oh, it's entirely in subtitles. I walked into this with kind of a begrudging
That was your
attitude.
first text to me, like, oh great, I gotta read for 3.5 hours.
I hate it. I gotta pause it every couple seconds to sound words out. It's awful. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, like we said, the runtime 208 minutes, 3 hours and 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's go through the baseball card stats. The budget for the film, 125 million yen, which is
Okay.
roughly equivalent to $1.1 million. The box
Oh,
office,
okay. That's
it's not too bad. But for 1954, it's huge. This is going to be we're going to talk about the distributor and the producer of this movie, but this ends up being one of the largest budgeted movies of its time, and it goes over budget 2 or 3 times to get that 1.1. But the payoff's there. I mean, the box office, 268 million yen, or roughly 2.3 million. It doubles its budget for being one of the biggest budgeted movies, which is huge. So it's a hit right out of the gate.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know some equivalents of that at the time. You know what I mean? Because I think, to the best of my knowledge, this is pre-spaghetti western, right? And spaghetti westerns owe a lot to this movie as well. So, like, I feel America wasn't doing things of this scale. You know what I mean? Like, we're in the Western era of cinema, as well as like Cary Grant things, and you know what I mean? Like maybe some dramas and stuff like that. But we're not doing, if we're doing a war movie in America, it's, World War II, World War I. We're doing things like that nature. So we're not doing like something like this.
So we covered that a little bit back in our episode. What episode was it? It was the one, I should know this because it was one of my favorite movies that we've covered on the podcast so far. I did it with shoot, I'm drawing a blank right now. This is embarrassing.
It was one of my favorites too.
1917. I did it with Vance. But we covered it a little bit in that episode, that there wasn't much about World War I, because if America's not in the war, they're just not really interested in watching about it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Which is why you see so much about World War II. Before we get any further, let's go ahead. Walk, shot glass, yours, my friend. 16 candles. I'll drop it off at the studio. I'm going to go ahead and write a little post-it note on that so I don't forget.
You need to share somebody.
You have to do a shot with it live on your show. That's what I want to see.
Oh, yeah, you should do that. That's a great idea, actually.
So we've kind of beat around the bush a little bit. Let's go ahead and throw it out there. And this is a topic I really want to get into detail on. It's the idea that when you watch old movies like this, it's really hard to understand the significance of the film, because you're living in a world that's post that film. And what I mean by that is this movie, 1954, is really the first time that we see on screen. There you go. It's really the first time you see on screen this coming together of all these different characters in one single mission. I mean, you see that in the Avengers now, one of the largest blockbuster movies happening, or a series of movies happening right now. But to think of a time in film when that didn't happen, and this movie is oftentimes noted as being one of the first times you see that. And it can be hard to understand the significance of that when you go back and watch it now 50 years later, because you're like, well, this just seems like another movie. I've seen this 100 times. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't think about it like that, but to your point, as we're watching, because so typically nowadays when I watch a movie, at least the first time, I watch it with a less discerning eye. I watch it for basically just to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to take this thing at face value. There's certain movies, like the Batman I'm going to see tomorrow. Like, I have a little bit higher expectations because I've seen 7 Batman movies or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I have an idea of what I want. But like with these older movies, I think like I kind of turn on like my film brain a little bit more, and I think about like what's the settings like, you know what I mean? Like what's the dialogue like? What's the cinematography like? Like how is this movie? How is it one of the most significant movies? Like what makes it that way?
Right.
So instead of just watching it and just like kind of letting it wash over me, I do turn on the film lens a little bit more. And to answer your question, yeah, there's 7 different storylines almost. I mean, there's one giant storyline as to what's happening in this movie, but each character is different, and has their own distinct personality, and you got to follow along with that specific character. And I thought that was really cool because I was like, oh, okay, I have certain samurais that I like more than others. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I know if this person's going to be in the scene, I'm probably going to enjoy it a little bit more than somebody else, and etc. So yeah, that's cool. That's something.
I mean, like I said, we've talked about it a few times on the podcast already, but I think this movie is a great highlight of the reason why you get a big difference between the critic score and the audience score when it comes to these Rotten Tomatoes. You have, I think, more the audience who's watching the movie to be entertained. Like you said, that fresh set of eyes, and then you have more the critic who's going to judge it based on cinematography and score and how's the acting. And there's no wrong way, in my opinion. It's also why, and I'm sure you can relate, when I get asked, what's your favorite movie, there's just no real way of answering that. Like what are you basing it on? There's so many different criteria. Depending on my mood, I might like one movie more than another on any given day. So, but to watch a movie like this, I think in retrospect, like I said, living in the world post the movie, it's hard to kind of identify what makes it good. Just a few things I got here. So at the time, like I said, it was the most expensive film made in Japan. Originally it was going to be 6 samurai, but they decided during the writing that they needed a character that was going to be more off the wall. Can you guess which character they added? I because I don't know the character names or the actors' names. I can't pronounce them, at least. I called him Crazy Eyes the whole time. He's the guy on essentially the cover. If you go to Wikipedia,
it's Kiku Chiyo.
He's a main star in Japan at the time. He was big in Japan. This is equivalent to them bringing in Robert Downey to be Iron Man. Like, we need a guy who can headline this. He brings an audience with him. Let's make him the 7th Samurai. And at first, his character is introduced as kind of this drunk, angry guy who starts stalking our main samurai. So let's get into the details a little bit. The movie starts off immediately, and obviously spoilers moving forward. The movie starts off immediately, and we have this Japanese town. Now we're talking feudal Japan. So this is 1590, I believe, is the year that they use in the movie. So it's very much medieval times, if you can imagine. You have an emperor who rules over all of Japan, but then you have these little kind of territories that are ruled by a single individual, and each territory might be made up of a dozen villages. So we're in one of those villages, and it is about to be attacked by a bunch of bandits who decide we're going to come back and attack the village once they've gone through their harvest, so that we can steal all their food, essentially. Not even stealing money. We're just going to steal their food. That's how feudal we're talking here. Now, if you had to guess, how many people are in this village?
Maybe like 75. Not too many.
Not too many at all.
Yeah.
And once they find out the bandits are coming for them, they all shit their pants.
You have to put it nicely. Yeah.
They literally have a 10-minute monologue with each other where they talk about yes, they talk about essentially we should all just kill ourselves. Like it'll be better to die by suicide than it would be to be attacked by these bandits because they're just going to torture us and just destroy everything that we live for. It's actually a pretty depressing scene. It's
Yeah.
awful to watch these people like bawling their eyes out in the town square, like just our lives are over.
Yeah.
And they come up with the idea that we should hire some samurai. Now, because at this point in feudal Japan, the samurai class has been kind of no longer needed by the emperor because they've introduced gunpowder and such. So the samurai class has been left to be basically guns for hire, no pun intended, swords for
Yeah.
hire.
Like mercenaries almost.
Yeah, basically. And they decide they're going to hire some samurai, they think 2 or 3, to help protect the village from the bandits. So they send a couple representatives to the local, major town to essentially start offering samurai money to defend them. But what you have to understand though about the
Not
samurai,
money.
yeah, they're just going to feed you. Come
Yeah.
defend us and we'll feed you.
Yeah, that's it.
What you have to understand about the samurai class though is again, very proud group of people, and to be this kind of freelance samurai is considered the bottom of the samurai totem pole, if you will. So just by asking them if they are for hire, the samurai are taking this insultingly. Like, what do you mean? How? I am not so down in the ditches that I could be for hire. Um, nothing uplifting about this movie so far at all. What are your thoughts? Why? I mean, because at this point we're about 40 minutes in. I mean, this movie, I don't want to say it's slow because I don't think it was a slow movie at all, but the plot develops in very rich long scenes.
Yeah, I knew we were going to talk about it. Like, as far as length goes, it doesn't feel slow because, like, my wife was like watching it. I mean, it took a long time, obviously, to watch it, like several days for me.
Mhm.
And she's just like, "Oh, do you like it?" And I was like, "I'll save my judgment." But I said, it's not a slow movie. It does move. Like, again, it's an older movie. They don't cut the way that we cut now, which is like every 2 seconds.
Right.
Like they let the scenes play out, but I feel like they were significant to what the story that was supposed to be told. Like, and I was thinking in my back of my head, like as this was over, I was like, what would I have cut to make this movie shorter? You know what I mean? Like what, nowadays we're not going to do it. Well, I say that. I mean, I'm going to go see Batman. It's 3 hours long. So, and
but it's rare though. It's rare.
It's rare, like Titanic or Braveheart or something. It doesn't happen that often nowadays. So, but where would I cut this movie for 3 hours? And it's more like I would probably just accelerate it a little bit. Like they spent a lot of time finding the samurais. It probably would have been like they're at a bar.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I just want to tweak some things to kind of rush along. But at the same time, I got to know everybody. I got to know all those villagers. I got to know every one of the samurai. So it's like, could I? And it would have had the same impact. I don't know. So far, yeah, the beginning of the movie, I would say, is the quote unquote worst part. Is because I know what the point of it is, and it just is going to take a little bit. But I will say, once they introduce the samurais and like getting them from then on, I don't think about the time.
Yeah,
personally,
I agree 100%. I also think that, like you said, you get to know each samurai individually as they enter. I mean, they even have a couple scenes where you have these samurai. So the idea is they eventually get one samurai to sign on. And I'm gonna butcher his name. So we're gonna go with initials. That's KM. KM signs on. And he is essentially, he's a little bit older of a samurai. He seems very respected. They find him because he shaves his head in order to pretend to be a monk to rescue a child. Now, again, feudal Japan, samurai, your braid was considered very much like in Game of Thrones. You don't cut your hair unless you're like defeated and it's done in battle. So the fact that he shaves his head willingly just shows that he's willing to put, saving a child above himself, which immediately as an audience member makes you root for him. He's obviously the good guy. He's so moral.
He's the leader.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
So he comes in to the villagers and basically says, like, I got you. Let me kind of take over looking for the samurai. And because of this moral thing that he did, immediately a townsmember comes up to him and is like, I pledge my life to you. Like, I want to follow you around and be your number two and learn everything I can from you. So he's kind of got a second samurai already, although he's not a samurai. He's a guy who wants to be a samurai. So the two of them start trying to recruit other samurai. And you even have these scenes where you think, I mean, nowadays, like you said, this whole thing would have been sped up. So you would think that, okay, we got the first samurai, here's the second, the third, here's the fourth and fifth together, done. But in here, it's like you have one that comes over. Well, no, he says no. You got another one that comes over. Oh, no, he's insulted. He walks away. Like, so you have these kind of false attempts here. I shouldn't say false attempts, but these characters that show up that don't wind up being a member of the seven. But slowly over time, you get a second and then a third and then a fourth. And I like you said, I really, you get to know the characters. It builds up. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed watching that. Yeah. I will say, going back to our comments about the villagers, apparently there was 101 residents in the village. And our director, who was Akira Kurosawa. There you go. He wrote a registry for all 110 residents of the village, creating a family tree for each villager to help his extras build their characters and relationships with each other. It's insane. The amount of effort that went into this movie, again, putting it in context of 1954, is insane.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Kind of like the amount of effort that's going to go into our next giveaway, guys.
Yeah.
So let's do some cool stuff. How about this? How about I got some t-shirts we're going to give away. Here's a 2XL. It's a Disney Villains t-shirt.
Okay.
And I'm going to pair that up with another, I think this is also 2XL, Power Rangers t-shirt.
It's morphin' time.
It's morphin' time, guys. So let's see it. Who wants the t-shirts? Throw up a comment or share. Each comment, each share will get you an entry, and then I'll take a quick scan of who's doing what, and I'll pick a winner. So that to be announced in the next couple minutes. So we talked about the director one more time, Akira
Kurosawa.
There you go. Did a couple other things in Japan. Has credits on stuff as recently as 2002, where he helped write the Sea Watches, which I'm not sure what that is, but I tried to look up both the production people on this movie as well as the actors to see if any of them translated over into America after this, and I didn't see any American films in anybody's cinematography list. So, which is surprising because the popularity of this movie in the U.S. at the time of release, I thought for sure somebody would have gotten pulled to be the Green Hornet's sidekick or something.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Kurosawa died in 98, but because of all the things that he was like a part of,
right?
It's still like inspired by characters of this. So even video games, movies, stuff like that, they'll still give him credit, even though he had since passed away.
Right. Yeah, because he's, again, this is oftentimes referred to as the assembly of heroic characters to perform a mission. This is the first time we see this in film. Originally released under the title Magnificent Seven in the US, which we know later goes on to be an actual Western. Man, it's not rated. However, it's noted for sex and nudity, violence and gore, profanity, alcohol, drug and smoking, and frightening and intense scenes. They do have some pretty crazy stuff happen in a film in 1954 that you would not see nowadays. First off, there is a lot of cussing, which I was surprised, especially by Japanese people. Not like, I mean, like the samurai of 1950s. I wouldn't expect them to be going around swearing. So that was kind of surprising. There is, it's slated for sex and nudity, but I don't think there was any actual nudity. There is
There's
implied
butts.
sex. There's butts.
There's because like those outfits are like a little like whoa.
Yeah, I mean they're essentially wearing
butt.
under their samurai stuff. They're essentially wearing like a sumo kind of diaper.
Yeah,
Like
I
a
think
bed
that's
sheet.
the butt.
Yeah, Crazy Eyes walks around with the butt out a lot.
Yep.
It won several awards, including nomination for Best Direction Set Decoration in a Black and White Film at the Academy Awards and Best Costume Design for a Black and White Film at the Academy Awards. The tagline, "The Mighty Warriors Who Became the 7 National Heroes of a Small Town." And it is distributed by Columbia Pictures in the US. They did remove 50 minutes of the film for US audiences, fearing they would be unwilling to sit through the entire picture, which I can 100% see why they would choose to do that.
Wow. I am interested kind of to see what that cut would be like.
Yeah,
what they lost.
So supposedly, from what I read, the actual lengthened version, the 208 minute version that we watched, wasn't widespread until the late 90s. So they saw that 50-minute cut version most of the popularity of the film. It wasn't until recently, relatively recently.
Damn.
I do. I do want to read this one item that I pulled from one of my sources, and it says this was shortly before it became illegal for the peasant class to possess weapons, with the samurai class being allowed 2 swords. It was during the period of Toyotomo Hideyoshi, the ruler of Japan, known as the Second Unifier, who put an end to the squabbles between lords and responded to the growing influence of Western missionaries by an ultimately ineffective effort to banish them from Japan. As the minor wars between the warlords had come to an end, many samurai lost their positions, with many of them becoming ronin or mercenaries, which was the lowest class of samurai. For the purposes of this story, we see a range of samurai from the lowest opportunist to the pure at heart. Which,
that's awesome.
Again, I mean, so Crazy Eyes sees a TM or KM, whatever I was calling him, TM, sees TM assembling this team and kind of just starts stalking him, starts following him around. He's kind of a pest. He wants to fight. He's like, they first interact with him. He's drunk in the bar. What did you think of him as a character when you first met him?
I didn't know he was, if he was actually going to be part of the group. You know what I mean? And like you said, he's a bit of a pest. He's very entertaining. And obviously things change as the movie goes on. But yeah, at first I was like, oh man, like this guy, like, is he really going to be part of this crew? But you always need one of the crazy people to join a crew. So he fit that bill.
So back to our giveaway, the 2 t-shirts, that's going to go to Jen. Thank you so much for your contribution to this whole thing. I didn't even play. Yeah, there you go. I didn't even play the music, guys, the intro music, but we'll have to add that in post. We'll do it in post. Okay, so I have a couple notes here as far as crazy stuff for the time. So it says during the 6-week screenwriting process, the screenwriters were not allowed visitors or phone calls. Jeez, you've written a couple screens. How would you like to write in those conditions?
It'd be amazing.
You get so much done, right?
I'm not even joking. It would be perfect.
Doesn't sound torturous at all. It also says it earned the name World's Greatest Editor because he would edit late into the night on the same day of shooting. He called it necessary.
Jeez.
So he's editing the movie while he's making it. That's incredible. And
we do that now.
I could see that. Man. I could see that being the way to do it because I mean you're fresh. You know what shots are good. You want to just, but I mean the editing process at the end of making a film is pretty long nowadays too. I mean movies get edited for like almost a year. It's insane. A lot of that's probably the CGI and special
I
effects,
was
though, I'd
gonna say it's
imagine.
mostly special effects. Like now, because we shoot so many things digitally, you could do like a print edit
Mhm.
probably that weekend, or like as things are going, so that when you're wrapped, you just add in that final scene and you could probably have, okay, this is an idea of what this movie is going to look like, probably based off of the storyboards or script or whatever.
Right.
But then, yeah, of course, you got to add in the special effects. We shoot a lot of coverage so you can get the different angles and stuff. I don't know how they shot things back then. I actually am not entirely sure. This is a movie that I want to get the Criterion collection,
Oh, yeah.
that set, just to see what all those making behind the scenes things are like for how they made this movie.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was definitely intense, a lot of the things I read, and we'll go over a little bit, in a second, but I'm with you, I'd be interested to see kind of the behind the scenes stuff on this one,
Yeah,
especially, again, from being 1954. I mean, I don't wanna harp on that, but it's as a cinema fan to see a movie from that era be this good. I mean, we'll get into it at the end of the show as far as whether or not we liked it, but there's no question this movie is good. It's on everybody's top 100 list of movies that you need to see, and it's 70 years old, so it's got to at least have some sort of good quality to it. But so back to the film, he assembles the samurai, including Crazy Eyes, who is the drunk guy. Now he doesn't remain drunk the whole movie, but he is
right.
definitely he's the aggressor in almost every situation. He's the comic relief. He's
Yeah,
the pseudo um he's the character in the film that you love to hate, right? Like you root for, but you maybe aren't supposed to.
yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
He's got a great scene where he's attempting to ride this horse that doesn't
uh,
want to be ridden, and it's very old-timey, where he's riding the horse to go behind the wall, and then as the camera follows the wall, you see the horse come out and him chasing it. Like it's kind of that kind of stuff, but it's not campy. I mean, I watch it in this film, and even though I know, like when he starts going behind the wall, I know how this is going to end. It still
yeah,
made me laugh, because he does play such a serious character, but does the comic relief stuff pretty well.
yeah. He, obviously, I don't know who the actor is of that time, but yeah, he does just a fantastic job in the role. And every scene that he's in, like at first it was kind of annoying, but actually it grows on you, and you're like kind of rooting for him throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he's also carrying a different weapon than everybody else, and I had the details as to the weapon's name, but I'm not going to waste time going through that. Essentially, the sword that he carries as a samurai is longer than the normal samurai sword. So instead of having it on his belt like you would see a samurai, he carries it like you would, I don't know, like a flagpole. Like he just kind of walks around with it on his shoulder, just and it's so weird to watch him carry the sword like that. And he proves himself to be a good fighter, especially when the bandits, show up towards the end of the film. But even more than that, what I found to be very interesting, and I think is is displaying the movie of the time. He's not the lead of the group. Nowadays when you have the budding star come in to the film and he's the comic relief slash aggressor, he's going to be the guy who's the leader of the group, and he's not. TM remains leader of the group. He remains kind of the dignified father figure, I guess.
Hmm.
Whereas Crazy Eyes is more the oldest son, trying to rebel. And the two of them, although they butt heads in the beginning of the film, they once they're on the same side, they're on the same side, and you don't have any sort of inner turmoil in the group. And to me, both those things are things that you see as stereotypes now in these sort of movies.
I think it's one of those situations where it's a cultural difference. A lot of other cultures respect elders more. You see it a lot in Bollywood movies as well, where they have their cast of like older actors who have been in literally hundreds of movies. and those guys and gals get top billing, even though there might be a Tom Holland equivalent who's in the movie as well. They might be on the cover poster, but the older people are still going to get that like specific screen time, and there's going to be a lot of weight behind it. And I think that's the thing too with a lot of Japanese cinema. I see in Korean cinema too, where it's like, yes, they're older actors or whatever, but you still get that that respect. We just saw it recently in Squid Game. That older actor, like he carries his own throughout every single scene he's in every single. I think he even got nominated for like an Emmy or something. Like he did a fantastic job. But I feel like, it's sad here in America. It's like, unless you're Anthony Hopkins, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's just not, Morgan Freeman, there's just like not that many people who have the same type of gravitas that you would say, oh, this older person, yeah, I'm going to go see the movie for that. Not, when you pair them up with, a Tom Holland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who would you rather see, Morgan Freeman or Tom Holland? It depends on the movie.
100% depends on the movie in that specific scenario. But I think one of the things that upsets me about Hollywood today, and it upsets me as somebody who likes cinema, I get why they do it, is it's one of those, like, I wish you would just do what is best and not do what you think I like. I mean,
Right.
I understand that the big name is going to draw the audience, and I don't blame them. It's an investment. I mean, at the end of the day, these movie studios aren't making movies because they like making movies. They're making movies because it's an investment. I can put $1 million in. Right, exactly. So they're going to do what their arithmetic shows is going to put, sell tickets. The issue I have with that, though, is I think in some scenarios, not playing into the trope or not doing what's expected could make for a better movie. And as a movie fan, I don't care how many tickets you sell. I want to see a good movie.
Right.
And
exactly.
And again, I understand why it's done the way it's done, but I kind of wish that sometimes they would go against the grain every once in a while, So I want to pause there before we get into the bandits showing up and the Seven Samurai doing their thing. I want to do another giveaway. So first, let me show you what I'm going to give away, and then we're going to do our big announcement, and then we'll announce the winner of the giveaway. So the giveaway I want to do here, spoiler, and I don't want any hate mail. I am not a Star Trek fan, not because I don't like Star Trek.
Wow.
I've never sat down to watch it. I'm sure if I did, I would love it.
Not even the new movies?
No, because you know why? Because I know there was so
them.
much history behind it that I figured if I watched the new ones, I wouldn't appreciate it fully. I hear great things about the new TV series. So, maybe that's a good jumping off point. I also know that they're going to be doing a lot more with the brand moving forward, because they have this huge brand and haven't really done much with it. So maybe it is something I get into eventually. But with that being said, here's the big giveaway, guys. This is a Star Trek book. It's an encyclopedia of the Star Trek ships. Okay. It's this unopened encyclopedia of all the ships from Star Trek. In addition to that, so one package, I want to give away other things as well. And that is all these replica ships that I have. I have 5 of them total. I don't know what ships they are. Maybe you guys will. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. There's a 4th one, and that I don't even know if that's a ship. It looks like just a pyramid of some kind. But
this looks so boring.
That's the giveaway. 5 Star Trek ships and the encyclopedia to go with it. If you want it, throw a comment in the bottom, or share this live, or share the video later when it comes out on video, video and DVD, VHS maybe. I don't know. So for that giveaway, we're going to announce that probably next week, after the show has been released. So it gives everybody a chance to enter, because I think that's going to be a big one, and hopefully a popular one if you're a Star Trek fan. Now time for the big announcement. So thank you. This is season 3, episode 8. And I just want to say I started the podcast shortly after the pandemic started, probably for the same reason that most people started podcasts around the time. I was bored. I was trapped in my house, and I just wanted something to do. Casey had been doing podcasts. Me and Casey have been friends for a long time, and I've been on a bunch of podcasts. We had done those Geeks You Know for a while, and I really enjoyed it. But more so, I wanted to do my own to kind of get my own message out there and my own thoughts about things. And I am a huge movie fan, so I ultimately settled on this. I've had a great time doing it. But with the pandemic hopefully coming to a close here soon, who knows? But more so, my time filling up with a lot of other projects that I'm working on, family time. My kids are getting older. I just don't have the dedication that I did when we started to be able to devote as much time as I can to this. So I've decided to step away from Gutsy Media Podcast, and we are going to wrap up the podcast with our 11th episode this season. So we had the live show today. That'll hopefully get released out on podcast in the next day or two. And then me and Dan from Critical Mass recorded a podcast because I do record these in advance. So we'll have that one coming out on March 14th. That we did Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. Then I did a show with my wife, Jen. That'll be March 28th. That's Empire Records, one of her favorite movies and mine as well. And then we're going to wrap up the podcast with episode 11 coming out April 11th. My guest that show is going to be Alec Weck. He was my first guest and he'll be my last guest. He has not picked a movie yet, but I will keep you guys informed when I have that. Listen, I've really enjoyed this. I've appreciated all the feedback and the support that I've gotten from my friends and family and the few fans that have reached out. I was astonished at the response I got with not just the popularity of the show, but how far reaching it is. To have downloads in Russia and Europe and Africa and, Central America and stuff like that has been just insane. And I really appreciate it, guys. The podcast will stay up for a while, so feel free to share it with your friends if you enjoy watching it and you're having a good time. And I do plan on keeping the Letterbox account active on social media, maybe even the Facebook. I don't know, but we will shut down the Instagram and the Twitter. So if you want to keep in touch, or if you want to revisit the show at a later time, make sure you subscribe both on YouTube, Facebook, and Letterbox. So with that being said, yeah, guys, that's the big news. Casey, it's meant a lot to have your support during this. I mean, we joke around a lot about DFAT and what you and Chris put us through, but realistically, this vision that you've had, for the network has been just astonishing. And I can tell you that I personally really appreciate it, and I know a lot of the other guys do too.
Well, thank you for doing this. I like you said, I've known you for a very long time, and I'm glad that you've done this podcast. Part of me is mad because I think you do a really good job. You're very organized, and I think you could still do it. But never say never. Never say never. So
never say never.
Or never. I also can't believe you're going to talk about Eternal Sunshine without me. It's in my top 5 movies of all time. But I look forward to listening to the episode.
Great, man. I look forward to having your critique on it afterwards.
I'm sure I'm going.
Man.
Bittersweet.
It's bittersweet for sure. I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed doing it. We almost hit 50 episodes, which is, it's a lot of movies.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just go.
But I can't. I have a lot of other obligations that I've signed up on, and it's kind of one of those things where, like, the more you do it, the more it kind of becomes work, and the more it becomes work, the less fun it becomes. And it just, I've had a really good time doing it, and I want to stick with ending it on a somber note that that it was fun for me still.
Well, let's leave on a high note. We still have the next half of this episode, so it's not all tears and buttholes, but yeah, well,
it could be all buttholes if you really want it to be. So they get the samurai, they get him back to the village, and now it becomes kind of training. They're training the villagers to do some sort of defense, and they're creating these barriers, because again, we're talking a small village in the hills, in the mountains. So they have some natural barriers around the village. They create other ones with, you know, roads in and out. And they're kind of preparing. So how do you feel about this whole preparing stage of the film? Because this winds up being about a half hour, 45 minutes of the film.
So this I loved, and the reason why is because this is with the filmmaker brain. How many times have we seen this scene in cinematic and movie TV history where we see these samurai training these stupid ass villagers? They don't know how they're doing. Then all of a sudden they're getting better. And then, you know, set up these barriers. Like I've seen it in Army of Darkness. We just saw it in Shang-Chi. I saw it in Mandalorian season 1. Like, I mean, I've seen that scene so many times. And I was just like smiling because I was like, this is the scene.
Yeah.
This is the inspiration for all of that other shit. Like, so
And
it was really cool.
What's
cool.
crazy is you watch this film now,
Yeah,
and there isn't much difference between then and now as far as how the scene's set up. Yeah,
it's
like
the same thing.
it's the same thing. You have these quick, I don't want to say quick shots, but you have these shots where they're like, we gotta block this off. Make sure you bring that over, and then we'll steer them over here. And it's like you totally know what's gonna happen. You see how they're setting it up. And what's crazy is and maybe it's not if you lived in the time, but how this final battle happens is not what you typically see nowadays. I mean, typically, and I'm in my mind, I'm seeing like the Transformers battle in New York, you know, where it's this huge, epic explosions, Michael Bay, you know, things are on fire for no reason. It's crazy. But this battle winds up being like a half hour long, and it winds up being these kind of guerrilla tactics, sort of, you know, picking each other off, because you have 101 villagers plus 7 samurai, and the bandits show up and they're about 30 deep.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have 30 trained bandits versus 100 farmers who 2 hours ago wanted to kill themselves at the mere thought of facing the bandits, you kind of feel like the villagers might be outnumbered here.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool dichotomy. I also thought a lot of westerns. You know what I mean? It's so many westerns, and obviously
100%.
they got it where it's just like you would hide inside of a building, you know, you hit out a window to look out the window, tag, you know, get one guy out of the group of band. I mean, it's really like, you know, you got to think like, what original idea did we have in westerns that didn't come from this movie? Because it's just there's so many of it, you know.
Yeah, because the bandits have to come in the village to kill anybody or to steal anything. So you have these scenes where these bandits are running up, and essentially the samurai block the only entrance and allow 1 or 2 to run by and then chase the other ones away, you know, with this wave of people. And the 1 or 2 that get into the village, they basically chase down and kill. And they pick them off, you know, a couple here and there in those kind of tactics. So the note I have here is after 3 months of pre-production, it had been 148 shooting days spread out over a year, 4 times the span covered in the original budget, which eventually came to almost $500,000. Toho Studios closed down production at least twice, each time the director calmly went fishing, reasoning that the studio had already heavily invested in the production and would allow him to complete the picture. The film's final battle scene, originally scheduled to shoot at the end of summer, was shot in February in near freezing temperatures. So we're talking muddy scenes, characters wearing essentially wooden sandals and cloth in freezing temperatures. I mean, this was an expensive over budget movie, but again, came out really well. So final battle, the villagers win, and then the movie ends. Now there's a subplot in the movie. There's a love story between one of the villagers' daughters who he somehow convinces to dress up like a boy so that she wouldn't get kidnapped, even though the village is full of other females. And she falls in love with one of the samurai and essentially wants to be like, there's a lot of implied things that aren't really accepted nowadays. So we're gonna skip that subplot completely because I think if you're gonna cut, like, to answer your question earlier, if you're gonna cut this movie down at all for whatever reason, you're
you can
eliminating
lose
the
that.
whole
You can lose
subplot.
the entire subplot. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely correct. It served no purpose,
no purpose. I mean, other
actually,
than to
at
give you the
all.
love interest. Yeah, you needed a female.
Yeah,
And
but it didn't like drive the plot forward.
I
You know
love
what I
how
mean?
the samurai figures out that the
Just
daughter
failed
is
hooker.
the samurai figures out that the daughter is a girl because he sees her walking through the woods. Now she's dressed up as a boy and has cut her hair. She still looks very much like a female, but for whatever reason it fools him. And
It's
he's like, "Hey,"
1954 or 1554, whatever.
he says, "Hey, where are you going? You need to defend the village. If you're a boy, you need to be picking up arms and defending." And she's like, "Oh, I am a boy, but I," and then just runs away. So he goes and tackles her, and upon tackling her is like, wait a minute. And that's how he figures out she's a girl, which is, it was just a really weird scene. But
Yeah,
that's
just for you listeners, you don't saw what Bob did with his hands, which is like basically grope the girl.
right.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, it was. One thing I wanted to say real quick. I don't know if you had it in your notes. Do you know Toho? Do you know that company?
It sounded familiar. I didn't. I know it from something. I'm sure you're gonna tell me. What is it?
Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Godzilla is the major company that does those films. Toho
Yeah,
does
you know what?
Godzilla films.
I had seen that in the research I was doing, that they had done, actually Godzilla came out either the same year or the year before. And
Very
there was
close.
there was a rumor that between this movie and Godzilla, because mind you, Godzilla was also a very expensive movie at the time.
She's literally talking about Pretty Woman, Jen. This is not the movie.
That those two movies almost put the studio out of business. Now, I read in other places that was not the case, but regardless, two very expensive movies, same studio, in the matter of a couple of years.
2 wins.
Yeah, two
Clearly.
wins for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, both
yeah.
movies went on to spawn a whole series of copycats and ripoffs. So yeah, obviously the samurai win. The bandits are chased away, or really just killed completely.
Yeah.
And the movie just kind of ends. There really isn't any, ride off into the sunset here, or where the characters are now 20 years later, like some movies nowadays do. It just kind of ends.
Yeah, and you're left thinking like, how does rice sustain people so much? or millet.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, which I think is just like
It's
the
like
wheat, right? Like,
well, so I actually found an article about that I
raw wheat.
forgot most of it, but it said basically it's like mushed up rice mixed with like a goat milk. Like it's just paste. It's gross. I don't know why anybody would want to eat it, but I'm assuming you don't have a choice. So with that being said, let's go ahead and announce one more giveaway, and then we'll go into our questions. Again, questions created by our crackpot team to determine if this was a good movie. I want to give away this massive figurine from Alien. Lambert from Alien, that's the character. This is pretty cool. So if anybody wants that, go ahead and comment or share the live stream, and we'll pick a winner in a second. Casey, if you want this, you let me know, buddy. I'll enter you as well, because I know you're a collector like I am. And you're a huge Alien fan, aren't you? You like those horror movies?
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
So without further ado, let's get into our questions.
Finally, some music.
Yeah, man. So, you've been on the show before. We got new questions every season. Season 3 was no different. So question number 1, does the progress and rhythm of the movie fit?
Yeah. Love story aside, I thought good pacing. That's really it. That's the only thing that I think I would really cut. I don't think it would equal an hour or 50 minutes. You know what I mean? It'd probably take out really like 10 minutes of the movie. But that's the only thing where I really feel like if there was something to slog, it would be that. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You know, if you would have told me that I would think that the progress and rhythm was good for a movie that was 3.5 hours long, I would have called you a liar. But the movie actually
If I would have
flows
got that
really
first
well.
text message.
You know, you watch, I think what it does well is you watch movies of this length nowadays, and there
Yeah.
typically is like a section that you can cut out. Like
Yeah.
I could have done without that whole middle section, or I could have done with all that. But in this movie, like you said, the love story aside, because it really isn't a big part of the film, you're gonna get,
Mhm.
if you were to cut that, you'd maybe get 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The movie flows really well. There was no point in the movie where I thought I could have done without this. The progress is enough where it keeps you involved in each scene
Mhm.
while also kind of spreading out the filler. So I thought it done very well.
Agreed.
All right. Question number 2. What,
Mhm.
if any, part of the film speaks to you and why?
Hmm. That's a really good question.
Mm.
I guess like we talked about it already a little bit, but the whole training people, you know what I mean, and getting in the tactics. I mean, Home Alone. You know what I mean? Like here's a battle map.
Yeah.
Here's where these people are gonna come from. These are the traps I'm going to set for them. You know what I mean? It's really all there. And um from a cinematic standpoint, that scene alone is the crux of so many pieces of pop culture that I think it probably would be the thing that really sums up everything. So
It
I love that scene.
it happens in Alien. You see that in Alien where they prepare the ship. They're gonna get our weapons together. Let's go through this final stance. No, I'm with you. The only thing I would say is I would expand that. I honestly, the part of the film that speaks to me is the entire film. And I say that
Well,
I
there,
don't
Bob.
I got it covered it all. I don't mean it like that. I mean it in the sense that, as a cinema fan, as somebody who has again has all these books with the top whatever movies of whatever period of time you want to discuss, to see this movie on so many lists and finally get a chance to watch it, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate being able to check this off my ultimate list of, this movie speaks to me because it has impacted so many other things that I've loved. And that's why I say that. That's why I say it's the whole film. So question number 3, what is the most important sequence of the movie? I mean, you kind of already covered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I got to pick a specific sequence, ooh, you know what? There's Crazy Eyes gives a speech in the movie, and I didn't know what he was saying because it was Japanese, but the subtitle said basically it was this heroic speech of stand up and fight, don't be a bunch of pansies,
Yeah.
fight for what is yours. And that's got to be a pretty significant and important part of the film there, with this idea of like what happens is, and we kind of glanced over it a little bit when we were summarizing the plot, is he comes across some armor, and when he reveals it to the rest of the samurai, the other samurai are like, "You idiot, that's samurai armor. The villagers have that because they've killed samurai before." And there's this moment of like, are they going to tell the villagers to F off now? Like, you killed our people and now you want us
Hmm.
to save you. And
Hmm.
Crazy Eyes gives this kind of speech of like, these people need us. And what they did before this, as far as killing samurai, they did for a reason. And this is different. This is a different time kind of thing. And I think that was a really important sequence because I think that unified the samurai and also got them on page with the villagers that, listen, we all know the big bad secret, but we're still in this because we're good people.
There is, to your point, another scene with Crazy Eyes where there is that one samurai who is like, I'm gonna go get that musket. And he just like disappears, gets it, doesn't
Yeah, that
say
guy was
anything.
badass,
Yeah,
by
he's
the way.
badass. He just sleeps, right? He just
Mhm.
goes, he did what he had to do. We don't have any idea, and he just disappeared. So Crazy Eyes is jealous and is like, I'm gonna do the same thing. So he goes out in a smart way. He kills one, wears their armor, tricks them, kills another one, and I thought that was really cool. But then he made a big show of it, like, look at this, I got this musket, blah blah. And they're just like, you don't have to do that. Like that is not the honorable way to do it. And I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, not only that, but when he comes back with the musket, the main samurai TM is like, you're supposed to be guarding the river.
You screwed over.
Like, you left your post to go do this, and then a couple guys get through and wind up killing one of the villagers. So he kind of blames himself for that, as he should. It's just a point of like, we sent this guy. We had it covered. You exposed a weakness in our defense because you wanted to show off, and you kind of see the inexperience from his character, which again leads to growth in the character as the movie goes on. I mean, the one thing I will say, I mean, we covered the 3 questions. I'm getting ready to ask you, but I'm actually going to chime in first so that I can steal all of your thunder. On a scale of 1 to 10,
dear podcast.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible and 10 being a masterpiece, I would give this movie probably an 8.5. And as a movie from 1954, I was not expecting that. I was expecting to watch this movie and appreciate it for being an old movie that everybody loved. But I was truly entertained. This movie is worth watching even today. It is entertaining. It's a good movie, and it's got so many nuances and character development. I mean, granted, it's 3.5 hours, but it's a good movie. It's a good movie that I would recommend to cinema fans now. Even if you don't think you're going to like it, give it a shot. But Casey, what do you think? 1 to 10.
I would say, because IMDb has it like an 8.6 or something like that. I think it's even higher amongst like normal people or something. But I would say it's probably a 9 for me. The girl love plot is stupid. There's some things with like the villagers that probably could be cut down a little bit, you know what I mean? Like where they're whining and all that kind of stuff. But like overall, it doesn't bother me so much. But the fact, if you were just going off of cultural impact, this movie gets a 10.
Oh, 100%.
Gets a 10. There's just some little things here and there for the time and all that stuff that might go down. Like, if you ask me Citizen Kane, it is a 10 for so many reasons. But like, yeah, it's just a great movie. Just it didn't feel long. I enjoyed myself. I was smiling. I was laughing.
Yeah,
like, legit. Like, okay, that guy's funny. Like, these guys are funny. Like, so yeah, I was just like, the technical achievement, man.
I mean, do you agree with me? Like, were you surprised at how entertained you were by a movie that is so old and is foreign and is long?
Yeah, it was. Because you never know, like where these movies are gonna lie. Because like you see something like Dr. Strangelove, which I think is a great movie. I think it's a funny movie.
That movie's crazy.
It's a crazy movie. Like there's so many people who would be like, this is a horrible movie. You know what I mean? And like, so, but it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time. So there's just so many like divisiveness that goes into cinema in general. I feel like this is pretty much one of those like universally lauded movies, and I get it. Like I got it. I was like, oh, this makes sense. I understand why it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's move on to our next segment and everybody's favorite, Guess That Tomato.
Oh man.
Oh, that wasn't the right music. There we go.
I love a good tomato song.
Any vegetable based music I'm into. So Rotten Tomatoes scores movies. We're looking for the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for 1954's Seven Samurai. 0 to 100. What do you say, Casey?
Aren't you gonna give me like something?
You gotta guess first, then I give you some hints.
Okay. Audience score. 97.
97. Okay. I'm going to give you the critic score, and then I'm also going to give you 3 movies that are plus or minus 2% of this movie score. Okay. Critic score, 88 critics rated this movie an average of 100.
Yeah.
I've never seen a perfect 100. That's insane. That's insane. Not so much that it got a 100, but the fact that 88 separate critics agreed on that, which is, I mean, critics
it's
are
because of that cultural impact.
It really is. It really is.
It really is that.
Okay, here are your 3 movie hints. For season 3, we're gonna do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here we go. Number 1, the good. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Why is it good? Do I need to describe any of it? I mean, the movie is insanely phenomenal.
Not to me.
You can't watch this movie and not be in awe of at least the visuals. As somebody who did not know anything about Miles Morales prior to watching it, at least very minimal, I guess I should say. The movie's great. I mean, do I need to go into any more detail as to why that's the good? The bad. Melissa McCarthy's Spy. Why is it bad? It's Melissa McCarthy as a spy. I mean, do you even remember this movie?
I know Jason Statham's on the cover of the poster.
Yeah, yep. She is essentially like a paper pusher at like the FBI or something, and all the other agents get called away on something, and she's the only one left, and she's got to be the actual agent out there. And it's an awful premise. It was an awful movie. That is the bad, and is somehow within 2% of this movie. And lastly, the ugly. Netflix, The Irishman. Why is it ugly?
Still haven't seen it.
Robert De Niro gets de-aged in this movie, and they had fans on YouTube who corrected the CGI and reposted scenes. Master in Disguise. That's also a bad movie. That's the one that's only like an hour long, right? It's not even a full movie. It's like
right?
An SNL episode. The Irishman, bad CGI.
These are all within 2
all within 2% of our movie 1954 Seven Samurais. So Casey, you guessed a 97. Do you want to change your guess?
I'm going to keep it.
All right. The correct answer is 97. Exactly. That's insane. That's insane.
I never get this.
97. So this movie has a 97 audience rating. That's over 50,000 different ratings and 100 from critics. That's all you need to know.
What's not Master? Which is the Melissa McCarthy? What is that?
Spy?
Rating?
Like 95?
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I liked it. You liked it. That's all there is to say. But before I let you go, Casey, it is a firm believer of the owners of Don't Forget a Towel that everybody geeks out on something. It might not be movies and comic books. Maybe it's saving villages and walking around with a giant samurai sword. But I got to ask you, what is it you're geeking out on?
Currently, Archive 81. I started it a couple days ago. I'm about 2.5 episodes in. It's based off of a podcast. It is creepy, and it's produced by James Wan. It's on Netflix. It's probably up your alley. And then the Batman, which is being lauded as a film noir that Seven meets the Zodiac meets Chinatown, and I was like, oh great. My good friend who loves all of those things, plus Batman, is not going to be there with me tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not going with
I just, whatever.
Here's the thing. I do want to see the Batman, obviously.
Well, you have to, yeah.
Here's what I'm worried about, though. So when they cast Robert Pattinson, I, like most people, was like, no, don't do it. And then as time went on, I did with everybody else, I was like, I'll give him a shot. I had no interest in seeing this movie. I thought Ben Affleck did a good Batman. I've liked Justice League, and I've liked Zack Snyder's Justice League. I've liked the Dark Knight versus Superman. I've liked those movies.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really looking forward to this, but it's gotten such high praise that I'm worried that now my expectations are going to be high and I'm not going to like it. Now I'm worried I'm not going to like it. I thought I wasn't going to like it, but now I'm worried I'm not going to like it.
They're low, to be quite honest with you. They're low. But you know, I'm still geeking out on the fact that I'm seeing a new Batman movie,
That's true.
solo Batman movie, which we really technically haven't seen since The Dark Knight Returns. So
do you think that Warner Brothers is going to get their act together with their properties?
That's another podcast.
That is another podcast. Yeah. So listen, Casey, Alien is yours.
I think I deserve it after getting that Rotten Tomatoes score.
That's yours. Walk, you'll get the shot glass, the 2 shirts going to Jen. Star Trek, comment, and I will post something up on social media sometime next week with who won. In order to enter, just throw a comment at the bottom of this video or share it. Either way, you get an entry for either one. The big announcement was we are retiring the podcast after episode 11. So thank you to all that support it. And
we
Casey,
love you, Bob.
Thanks for being on my show, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It's sad to see you go. I've enjoyed every one of these episodes. So I'm sad, but you know, I'm happy that you're doing what you did.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Let's outro music. Thanks, guys.